Today, I lost Claude Fable. Well, not exactly. It wasn't banned, it didn't disappear overnight. It just got expensive. Using it for real started to sting. And instead of filming another rant, I spent the whole day on something better, rebuilding what Fable actually did, but on top of Opus 4.8, the model I already pay for. So, two things in this video. First, two methods, backed by real papers and benchmarks, that claw back a big chunk of that gap. And at the end, the part nobody's really talking about. Why Fable will probably come back to the plan, and what still has to happen for that. Here's the core idea. The model is rented, but the method is yours. Because what made Fable feel like magic wasn't just the brain inside it. It was memory, planning, self-review, the way it split the work up, and none of that lives inside the model. It's stuff you build around it. And I'm not going to ask you to take my word for it. I'll show you the numbers. First, the honest truth. No drama. Day to day, Fable and Opus are basically tied. That huge gap the internet keeps screaming about, way smaller than it looks. And here's the part that's in your favor. Opus costs a lot less per task. So dollar for dollar, it actually gives you more. Think of it like this. You didn't lose a Ferrari. You traded it for a car that makes the same trip on half the gas. Now the other side, because I'm not here to sell you a fantasy. There are two things Fable wins at, and wins big. One is genuinely hard code on a heavy benchmark. It scores around 80% versus about 69% for Opus. The other is the long haul, running for hours on a long task without losing the thread, without getting tired. That part is the model itself, not a trick. If that's your job, Fable is expensive for a reason. So the real question isn't how do I copy Fable? It's this. How much of that was the model, and how much was just how you use it? And how you use it, turns out there's real science behind that. Two techniques. Let's start with the first. Technique 1, fusion. Instead of one AI doing everything alone, you use a few and combine the best of each. There are two flavors. The first is routing. A dispatcher looks at the task and sends the easy stuff to the cheap model, the hard stuff to the expensive one. The second is aggregating. Several models answer the same thing, and one of them steps in as a judge, merging it all into a single answer. And the best part, you don't train anything. You just orchestrate the call. And this actually works on the models people use right now. On a hard, deep research benchmark, Fable is the one to beat. Take a cheap panel, Gemini 3 Flash, Kimi, and DeepSeek with Opus refereeing. It beats GPT 5.5 and lands right on Fable's heels for about half of Fable's price. And if you go all in, fuse Fable itself with GPT 5.5, and a team beats Fable alone, 69 to 65. A team of models beating the single best one there is, even when that's Fable. But the case that genuinely floored me came from the Japanese lab Sakana. They took 3 frontier models and had all 3 work together on one of the hardest benchmarks out there. Brute forcing a single model on its own got about 23% of the problems. As a team, they cleared 30, beating any single one of them. Now, the fine print, because I play it straight, that's counting a lot of attempts. If you limit it to 1 or 2 answers, it drops to about 19%. But the lesson still stands. A well-coordinated team beats the lone genius. Okay, but how do I actually do this? You don't even have to build it from scratch. There are ready-made tools. For routing, cheap versus expensive, there's Route LLM. For aggregating, mixture of agent style, there's Together's repo. And you can wire it up right inside Claude code. Send the same prompts to 2 models, then ask Opus to close it out by merging the 2 answers. The skeleton is literally this. Here's what actually separates a frontier model from the one you already pay for. It isn't how smart it is in a single step. It's how long it stays reliable. There's a way to measure it, the task horizon. how long a job the model finishes on its own without losing the thread. And in 2026, that horizon exploded, now doubling about every 4 months, with the top model holding a task for over 14 hours. But that's at coin flip odds. Push for the reliability you'd actually trust, and the window craters, 4 to 6 times sheer. That long, trustworthy autonomy is what you're really renting when you pay for the top model. So why does a single agent still drift on a long task? 3 reasons, and every one is measured. 1. The context rots. A million token window doesn't mean a million usable tokens. Push a model to a full million, and even the best one tops out near 76%. Most land far lower, near a third. 2. It's not just wrong, it's certain. It makes an early mistake and builds right on top of it. Here's the wild part. Agents that actually succeed 22% of the time will predict 77. So instead of flagging the slip, it doubles down. Worse, once that wrong belief is written to memory, it's treated as truth. 3. Every small error compounds until the whole run has drifted. The fix isn't a bigger brain. It's giving the model a few disciplines and running them relentlessly. Keep the context clean, compact, and curate instead of hoarding. Guard the memory. Validate what gets written before you trust it. Cross-check the work, but not by asking the same model twice. In 2026, that barely helps. Point a separate critic at it, aimed like a bug hunter, and run the tests. A checker grounded in what executes, not in a confident answer. Now the move that ties it all together. Don't run one agent. Run 2 or 3 instances of the same model, each with a role, and point those disciplines at each other. One plans, one executes, one is the guardian. It watches the other's context, their memory, their hallucinations, and it checks their work. This isn't a theory. A 2026 study out of Carnegie Mellon did exactly this. The same model, coordinated instead of solo. Paper reproduction jumped 27 points. Building real libraries, 14. And here's the honest kicker. The gain wasn't tied to the model. It held across 3 completely different models. It's the method, not the model. Strip the guardians out. Pull the critic, pull the tester, and it collapses right back down to a lone agent. The watchers aren't decoration. Each one earns its place, and you can build this today in Claude Code. Sub-agents give each role its own clean context window. A skill file packages each discipline. A lean memory file keeps the shared truth small and curated, and you compact on purpose before the context rots. Here's one guardian running for real. A tiny sensor that watches how full the window is and tells you to compact before the model starts to drift. Now the part most videos skip. This has a ceiling. Multi-agent systems fail in 14 documented ways. They burn around 15 times the tokens, and a weak checker gets gamed. Reward the wrong thing, and the loop learns to cheat it. So let's be precise. Nobody has proven that a cheap loop equals a frontier model on long work. What's proven is quieter, and it's enough. The loop pulls a lot more out of the model you already have. You're not replacing the frontier. You're closing the gap to it with method. Now take a breath, because the world didn't end. Let me tell you why Fable left, because it wasn't just greed. On June 12th, the US government slapped an export control on it. From what was reported, there was a jailbreak that made the model reveal security flaws. So Anthropic shut off access, sat down to negotiate, tightened the guardrails, and on July 1st, Fable was already back, now with a new lock that blocks that attack and hands the case off to Opus. So let's be precise. Fable didn't go away. And here's the first bit of good news. It was set to leave the plan, but they extended it through July 12th. Until then, it's still included, up to half of your weekly limit. It only flips to paid credits once you burn through that, which is exactly what happened to me, and that's what made it expensive. And no, there's no official date for it to come back to the plan for free. But the reason isn't spite, it's capacity. There simply aren't spare GPUs to run a model this big, included, for everyone at once. And here's the optimism, but with both feet on the ground. Anthropic's capacity is growing, and growing fast. One example is the deal with SpaceX to use the entire Colossus data center. Over 220,000 GPUs coming online within weeks. And their official announcement says in plain words that this capacity will improve the experience for subscribers. That doesn't guarantee a date for Fable's return to the plan, and I'm not going to make one up. But the tide is toward more capacity, not less. And that works in your favor. And this is where it gets good for you. This stretch with Fable being expensive isn't a punishment, it's you sharpening your axe. Because look again at what you just learned. Memory, fusion, agent loops, routing. None of that belongs to Fable. None of it belongs to Anthropic. It's yours. It's your toolkit. So when Fable becomes affordable again, and the tide is heading that way, you won't use it the way you used to. You'll stack all these techniques on top of it and pull out twice as much. See? You didn't lose Fable. You're learning to supercharge whatever comes after it. So, quick recap so you can close this tab a little lighter. Fable got expensive. It didn't disappear. The Opus you already have is strong, and it gives you more per dollar. Fusion and agent loops win back a big chunk of the rest, and sometimes they even pull ahead. And capacity is coming online, which points toward more access, not less. Every paper, every repo, and every news link I mentioned is in the description. No paywall. And one honest ask. This channel is just getting started, and it really runs on your support. If any of this helped, subscribe. It genuinely makes a difference. Drop a comment and share it with someone who'd find it useful. That's what keeps this going.